Yeah.
Long story. I don't know how much you want to take, but let's just say one morning I met these two guys. I was actually standing on the side of the road with a fan of money trying to get a ride, and they pull up to buy some beer Sunday morning, actually.
On their way to church.
Yeah. So this sporty little car pulls up with shiny mag wheels and comes to a stop right there at the quick stop across the road, and one of them goes in to get something. I haven't met him at this time, so I'm out there and I kind of smile, like, hold my money up, and so apparently JL was in the driver's seat at this time, and then he sort of leans out of the car door and says, "Hey, you got any money?" And I sort of like, I'm half embarrassed, looking around. Yes. It's like, I say, you got any money? And I think I better go negotiate with this man before I alarm the whole neighborhood, So I told him I'd give him $5 just to get me to the other side of the town. Actually, I'd gotten a ride halfway already, so I was trying just to get it on the other side of the town. So we're sitting there negotiating back and forth, and Tyrone comes walking out. These two guys are buddies, JL and Tyrone. Tyrone comes walking out with this beer, and he just looks at me. He says, "You want to ride?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Get in the truck." So apparently it was Tyrone's truck. So they crank it up and they start going along, and Tyrone sort of pulls out a beer from his six-pack, and he grabs that and he opens it. You can see the mist coming out, and he just looks at it. He smells it, and he's just about to take a swig. He's reverently getting ready to drink his beer, and then he's just about to turn it back and drink, and he looks at me. He says, all of a sudden, he remembers his manners. You like beer? I say, uh-huh. You want a beer? Being polite, I said, well, sure, okay. And so he gives me a beer, and then he cracks another one for himself. He says, I like beer. I love beer. I drink beer every day. And then he takes his big morning drink. It's like, whoa, this guy is into his beer. So I'm sitting there talking to JL, hanging through the truck window, and he's telling me about his life. So he'll tell me something, and I'll tell him something. I'm telling him about the long rider's journey.
Right.
And I'm telling him about the horses. Yeah, we got horses waiting over there. And he's like, listen, at this time I had no idea, but he thought I was full of shit. He thought I was tripping on acid, and had no idea that anything I was saying made any sense. So we're having this conversation, and I think he's believing everything. So I'm telling him about my life, my story.
You tell me your life. You're telling him, I live in the woods. I don't have, I've lived there since I was a teenager. I trap my own animals. Right. Okay. And he's just thinking, yeah, right.
You got it. Okay. You got the picture.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we get to a gas station. I fill him up with gas. Then we drive on, and so we come around the bend. They're saying he starts wondering if I even know where I want to go. If I'm just
making the whole thing
crazy.
Up, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we round the bend, and there's my partners with the horses, and JL's like, shit, man, they got horses! They got horses! And he's just absolutely amazed. He throws the car, in the park and jumps out, leaves the door wide open, and just sort of runs over to the horses and reaches out to touch them as if, can they be real? All of a sudden, everything shifts. Instead of being a freak, all of a sudden he's got respect for me. The reality comes in, and he wants to help out instead of trying to take my money. Here's how I met this guy. You got any money? He's trying hard as he can to take me for any kind of dollar bill. And all of a sudden, heart comes in, feeling, something totally shifts, and he cares about us. And so he comes out and meets us on the road several times, brings a friend. They drive the truck ahead a couple of days, and just such a shift from our introduction.
When they'd ride into town, they'd try to find somebody with a fenced-in field or yard, and they would ask them if they could camp there. And over, people not only said yes, They invited them in for hot meals and hot showers, helped them out any way they could. There's this one family in Louisiana, the Marbles, who, after putting up Eustace and Judson and Susan for days, really, helping them find a new horse, decided to deliver them a hot turkey meal with stuffing and cranberry dressing and all the fixings out on the road.
We were riding down the road several hundred miles from where they live, and all of a sudden they drive by hooting and hollering out the window, and my gosh, is that the Marbles? And they pulled over ahead of us, and by the time we got up to them, they had a big old Thanksgiving dinner is what I call it, even though it was January or February.
And they had driven hundreds of miles.
Yeah, then they had no idea exactly where we were. They was just in a hope that they could find us. All the cooking, all the driving, all the planning to have that Sunday afternoon to come try to find us, and they did.
Jason, why do you think people were responding the way they were to the three of you traveling?
Because we were doing something that everybody dreams about, but nobody takes the risk to do, or the time, the energy, the money, the challenge to do.
I guess I had my own way of thinking about it. Is I wanted to tell people, just like, you can do whatever you want. Celebrate life. Don't just work at a grind forever. Just stop. Just say, I want to do this. Like, that's what I did. I said, I want to ride a horse across the country. Had 1,000 people tell me I couldn't. I didn't listen to one of them. I said, I'm going to do this. And I got on a horse and started out. I didn't know how to do this journey. I didn't know much about riding horses.
It's also like the three of you are just like out there, sort of just like putting your hearts out there. You know what I mean? Just like doing this thing, and so that just like calls this thing forward from other people where they want to do it too.
It does. People would even just ride up and roll down their window and stick out a $10 bill.
Several times we'd turn people down. People were like, let me help you. You can stay at our house. And we're like, well, we've already got plans. Somebody already pulled over and invited us to stay at their house. And several times we split up, and one of us would spend one night one place and somebody else would spend the night somewhere else.
Part of this reaction had to do with the horses, Eustace and Judson say. They had both hitchhiked across America, and they said that people were not nearly so friendly. But with the horses, they would ride into town, looking like cowboys, charming and dusty, like figures not just out of a movie, but out of some dream that we all have of America. When these epic figures trot up the interstate into your town, how could you not stare? Who would not want to be near something so larger than life? People didn't just give them money. People wanted to talk to them, tell them their stories, which Eustace recorded on tape.
Allison, tell our diary what's going on. What do you do for a living? Where are we? And anything
we're at a rock shop out in the middle of nowhere. In fact, we're 3 miles from the middle of nowhere. Mile marker 33 is in the middle. We just kind of poke along out here, and this used to be owned by Sam and Vera Jones. Sam was otherwise known as Rattlesnake Jones. He believed in protecting rattlesnakes. He had a rattlesnake pit out here with over 200 rattlesnakes in it at all times. Him and Vera also had 2 pet bobcats.
Wow.
And a lot of neat history out here. Sam killed himself on the front doorstep over there of the trailer because he was dying of cancer and all sorts of health problems. He was living in a hospital bed on an oxygen tank, and he told his wife that he was going to shoot himself that morning, and she said as long as he didn't do it inside the house, she didn't want to clean up the mess, and she knew he was serious, and she was out in the rock shop and heard the gunshot and waited about an hour before she called the ambulance because he didn't want to be resuscitated. He wanted to be dead.
My goodness.
Yeah, it's real interesting out here.
My dad was a bird hunter. And we had 3 or 4 milk cows. My sister and brother, they would milk the cows. I feed the hog. My dad would feed the mules. He would pass through the room and say, "Get up, boys.
Get up, boys."
And look,